one of my movies of 2021 has been deemed by the group that gives out Oscars as not a movie. I guess because it was eligible for Emmy voting. So if you really think it's not a movie, I'd have to say then move everything up one and replace it with insert blank. So instead of doing that, I decided to cheat and make my top 10 a top 11. All right, so my 11 is Pig. Nicolas Cage, restrained, is actually good at acting. Yes, he is. In Pig, Cage plays a truffle farmer whose prized truffle-sniffing pig is stolen and he vows to get it back. It's sort of a ridiculous premise, and you probably hear that and go, I know how this goes. But I bet you don't. Pig subverts expectations at nearly every opportunity while still managing to be entertaining and cohesive film. And it's just got great performances all around. Every time something was about to happen, or you're like, okay, this is Act 3. This is where shit goes down. You're just like, oh, okay. I was pleasantly surprised at pretty much every opportunity I could be. All right, my number 10 is The Green Knight. A lot of people seem to be lukewarm on this one, but while it may be on the slower side, it's definitely not boring. It's a beautifully shot take on the tale of Gawain from Arthurian legend. It's mostly made up of his journey to go out and meet the Green Knight a year after a meeting they have at King Arthur's court. Again, it's very nice to look at. The cinematography, the sets, the costumes, just the works. If you have the patience and appreciate eye candy, this is going to be a good time. Pretty slow, but I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, I watched a lot of the stuff on my list probably this month. But one of them that I didn't was my number 9, The Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad. Very important distinction. Turns out R-rated movies about villains or anti-heroes tend to have a giant head start over the same type of movies that need to be cut to be a PG-13. Suicide Squad is funny, violent, crude, and oddly heartfelt. I didn't expect much, but was pleasantly surprised. The rivalry between Peacemaker and Bloodsport was very entertaining. Also, Bloodsport has probably the coolest costume in any comic book movie property I've ever seen. One of the more fun watches of 2021, and monumentally better than the other Suicide Squad movie. My number 8 is The Last Duel, which is a medieval story told from 3 perspectives, Rashomon style. A woman played by Jodie Comer accuses her husband's former good friend of sexual assault. The story is then told from her husband's, the accused, and then finally her perspective, which is the truth. This is bookended by a duel between her husband, played by Matt Damon, and the man that was once the godfather to his child, played by Adam Driver. It obviously gets very fucked up during the parts of the story where the assault in question takes place, but they do a good job of only repeating the very important and necessary portions of the story. Matt Damon is often distracting in movies like these because I often have zero clue if he's trying to do an accent or not, and when he does, he's really fucking bad at it. But Adam Driver and Jodie Comer's performances are great. Just don't go into this expecting it to be Gladiator because it's directed by Ridley Scott and you'll be rewarded. My 7 is, I think, the worst reviewed thing on my list that I can think off the top of my head, which is Being the Ricardos. It's a film detailing a week in the life of Lucille Ball during the making of I Love Lucy, wherein she was accused of being a communist, which then was as bad as it will probably be in a few years when the U.S. is under tyrannical rule of Ron DeSantis. Being a communist could kill your entire career then, because everyone hated communists, saw them as a threat to democracy. But Being the Ricardos is a very funny historical fiction. There are scenes in the movie where they're like in the writing process of the show where they would tell her like a vague premise and then she would play the entire thing out in her head and like be writing the dialogue and stuff and like every little movement as it was going. And yeah, those scenes were great. I fucking loved that so much. It was an overall great watch. If that's how she thought she was a genius, but I mean, who knows, if she ever like explained that to somebody, but all right. My number 6 is The Father. This is what I was talking about earlier when I was saying a movie that someone said was one of their favorites of 2020. This came out in 2021. I think it showed maybe at the MoMA in New York for like probably a weekend to be eligible for, even though they extended the eligibility for Oscars. But yeah, have you ever watched something or experienced something that felt like you needed to decompress from, like you needed vacation afterward? The Father is like that. It starts out intriguing and then it gets more and more terrifying until it's just purely a horrifying and draining watch. It's a truly fucked up horror movie that shows you life through the lens of someone suffering from Alzheimer's disease. Anthony Hopkins deserved every award or accolade that he received from this. I'll usually stupidly say like, oh, I recommend this movie very much. Of course I do. It's on my best of the year list, but I have a lot of trouble recommending this. I think some people should see it, but it is not a fun watch. credits rolled, I tilted my head back and just sat there in stunned silence while tears rolled down my cheeks. I would also strongly recommend people that have or have had a loved one affected by Alzheimer's to avoid The Father. My wife's maternal grandmother died from Alzheimer's, and I straight up told her, like, you should never see this movie, and you should also tell your mom the same. Like, just avoid it. My number 5, I was going to say, get into the good stuff, but all this shit is good stuff. My number 5 is The Tragedy of Macbeth, which is a sparse beauty of a film. I'm honestly not too versed in Shakespeare. I had never seen or even read an adaptation of Macbeth before.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But I have since heard this is basically the Cliff's Notes version of Macbeth. Fantastic cinematography and sets with some huge pieces that seem almost barren, but give the shots this feel of an epic theater production. I was very excited for this movie to hit Apple Plus, and I wasn't disappointed. It honestly might have been higher on my list if they had found a way to sort of modernize the dialogue, because like I said, I'm not too well versed in Shakespeare. And I kept thinking, I think this is what's about to happen. And I was correct every time I made that assumption, but yeah, me dumb at Shakespeare, but movie very good. I hope it gets nominated for production design. The production design's great. Cinematography's great. My number 4 is another flex pick, Power of the Dog, a fabulous character study of a man in 1920s Montana trying to cling to the old ways as homage to his mentor that he idolized. He's also hoping to get his own personal ways of living, to keep his own personal ways of living. But when his brother marries a widow with a teenage son, it upends life around their ranch. It's a slow burn, like a lot of stuff on my list is, but it's acted beautifully, especially by Benedict Cumberbatch. There's definitely some ambiguity to some of the relationships, both past and present, but I don't want to spoil anything by saying what I think the case is or trying to explain the ending. My number 3, the largest budget thing I think on my list, is Dune. I've seen or wanted to see every choice in my top 3 more than once. After I watched Dune for the first time, I said, let Denis Villeneuve make every sci-fi movie from now on. This is the same guy that directed Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, so as far as it goes, for my opinion, he doesn't miss. So yeah, I loved Dune Part 1. It had the best effects of 2021 to me and my second favorite production design. But honestly, I don't think there was anything I disliked about it. I guess the story could have been more complete, but I didn't even mind how it kind of felt like it ended in the middle. It just kind of adds the anticipation for the next installment. I would have been majorly bummed if we never got a sequel, but I mean, we are, so it doesn't matter at this point. Watching a movie at home on HBO Max, set this up by saying that, I don't think I touched my phone the entire runtime of this when I watched it for the first time, which is saying something. I loved Dune, man. Favorite sci-fi movie probably since Blade Runner 2049. My number 2 is the movie that is maybe not a movie, and it's Bo Burnham's Inside. Can I interest you in everything? All of the time. This is the, I guess, movie that isn't really a movie. Look, man, I don't care. Inside is incredible. It has a full movie runtime. But yeah, many of the songs in this are extremely funny and catchy. A white woman's Instagram, sexting, total bangers. The scene where he's talking to the sock puppet is one of the best scenes in probably anything this year. Also, the sentiment of not finishing something so it never ends, you never have to deal with it being over, something I've dealt with a lot too. I could see a lot of myself in Bo Burnham, like everything except for the talent. So yeah, rules about what constitutes a movie be damned. Inside rules, and that's my number 2 of 2021. All right, my number 1 is The French Dispatch. A lot of people hate Wes Anderson. I guess I get it. His movies have a very particular style, and it seems like every subsequent thing he does becomes more of that than the previous, but I unabashedly love it. The French Dispatch is presented as an issue of a magazine with some short initial segments and then 3 major features. And it's kind of ended by instead of an epilogue, it is a obituary, because it's the final issue because the guy that started the magazine has died, and then it's presented as that, and they show the 3 stories. Maybe every story of the 3 didn't hit for everyone, but I loved all 3. I mean, this also has fantastic music and possibly the best production design I've ever seen. The sets are insane in a spare no expense theater production kind of way. If there's a Criterion Collection version of this released at any point, I'm definitely gonna buy it. I like my list. You don't like your list? That's fine.
No, I fucking hate my list. I would love to like my list. There's years where I've had a list where I'm like, hell yeah, this list is great. This year, I don't know what happened.